There are so many different types of kayaking, and whitewater river kayaking is one that I'm not familiar with. So today we have someone all the way from Canada to share with us his whitewater river kayaking experience. Paul, welcome to today's show, and you're all the way in Canada. So can you let us know whereabouts in Canada you are?
Hi, Chad. Yes, I am in a small town in the Canadian Rockies, about an hour 20 away from Calgary, just the main city, the main airport. The town I live in is called Canmore, which is a Gaelic word, which actually is partly because there's a Scottish heritage here. But being Irish, we also have Gaelic, which Canmore means big head, basically. And I'm right and surrounded by the Canadian Rockies. It's very close to Banff National Park, which I think a lot of people would have heard of Banff. It's very famous, and Lake Louise, of course, which is not too far away. So that's where I'm at.
So that's why I see all the kayaking videos because you have really good access to all those wonderful places.
We do, yes. It's only certain times of year. Obviously, the spring runoff when the snow melts and rainfall. We don't get a huge amount of rainfall. We do in June, so now is the time the rivers are filling and the snow is starting to melt. There's one river beside me though that is dam controlled, so that's kind of 12 months a year if you're brave enough to go out in the winter because it does get quite cold. Which this last winter I have been. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy for that reason, but it does get cold. So at the moment, the summer, so from now right through to say August, but we tend to drift further. So around this area, the rivers will start to finish in the next couple of weeks, 2, 3 weeks. And then we push a bit further into maybe British Columbia because those rivers last a bit longer.
Understand. So, Paul, river kayaking, whitewater river kayaking is very, very well unfamiliar to me because we don't have access to it over here. So, how did you get into whitewater kayaking, and what made you continue this great sport?
I was quite late getting into it. I was in my late 40s or middle to late 40s when I started it. I came to Canada, and where I lived is, I've access to a lot of lakes, and the lakes are stunning. So I went to Costco and I bought a flat water kayak in Costco and start going out, yeah, and then start going out on lakes. And a friend of mine at the time was doing white water. So he brought me to a local river here. We started off in class one, class two type river. And I enjoyed it. It was a bit more adrenaline, I guess, was what brought me to it. And for the first year, unlike you're fantastic. It took me a year to learn to roll. So I swam that river so many times because every time I flipped, I was swimming. Um, and then once I got my role, I really, really got into it. My confidence level went way up. So I just felt this thrill. And then you just push yourself a little bit more and more. I do have my limits because I'm not young. So when I hurt myself, it takes a little longer to recover. So not that it happens a lot. It doesn't. Yeah, so I think it's just the thrill of it and excitement, and I actually have a good group of friends now. There's a really great group of people within this catchment area of Calgary, Canmore, Banff, all this area, and, as far as Jasper, um, that are great people and I enjoy their company. I enjoy going out, so there's a good community in it. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay, so whitewater kayaking is very different to sea kayaking. And I mean, you've already gone into it a little bit, but how would you describe the differences and from your personal experience?
Ooh, I just find it's nonstop adrenaline. It's nonstop, you know, action. There's always something happening on the river. You're looking, you're watching what, to pick your line if you're going through a rapid or whatever it is. You're on the lookout for hazards because there's always hazards in white water because there's always moving branches or trees or who knows what's in the way. And the other thing, actually, one of the great things I love about it is, well, we get to see an awful lot of wildlife, especially where I live. You see moose, bears, elk, deer all along the river beds, all along the riverside. So, but the whitewater is just constant adrenaline. And I think I like action. I played a lot of football or soccer up, in my life up to just pre-COVID. I was still playing, and I coached, a lot of kids in the high school here. I was part of the coaching team, so soccer was kind of my main sport. But when I got into this, I just really something about it, just this adrenaline rush, really took me, and I can't get it out. I can't get rid of it, so I have to kayak.
Actually, two follow-up questions on that. So, adrenaline, that's really hard to manage. Do you find that you can control your adrenaline better, or not so much control adrenaline because that's a natural body reaction, but do you find that you can manage your your thinking process better now that you've kayaked longer?
Yeah, it depends on the day. It depends on the river. I mean, I've gone to some rivers and you don't you get on it and you feel nerves, real nerves, and like it's kind of like when I was playing football as well. Before a match, before you ever got into playing a game, you always have this little tingle in your stomach. The nerves are kicking in, and then once you get on and you start doing it, that goes away, and your focus takes over. I find that as well with the white water, but there's some days, just some days, something isn't right. Whether it's you see something in the river or it's just a feeling in your stomach or whatever. So it depends on that moment, on that day, on that river, on the weather, you know, and your outfitting it. So I'm always playing with my kayak outfitting to be comfortable in the kayak. So, it's kind of like, I guess, like skis. When you go skiing, you want the boot to fit, the ski to fit, so it goes where you want it to go. The kayak for me is the same. I need it to be tight in there. I need to be comfortable, tight, and in control. So it just depends on the day.
Makes sense. And you're saying when you're going down a river, you have to think about which line to go and to avoid rocks and the currents. But like you said, each day is very different. So there could be a lot of rain the day before, or it could be very dry. So I've seen people get out their kayaks and inspect the area before they go down a rapid. But how often do you do that? Is it down every rapid that you get out of your kayak and go down, or is it just purely from experience, you know when to get out?
It's a bit of both. You can do read and run. So what you can see on your horizon line, so you can see a rapid, you can see what's there, so you can run it. If there's clear, you can run it. If it's a waterfall or a drop of some sort, you always want to get out to inspect it to make sure, because you can't see below it. So you want to make sure that there's no trees or logs or anything going to block your way. So it really depends on the situation. And as you say, the rivers change because of rainfall and snow melt. So with that, things move around. Rocks can move, trees move, anything can get in the way of some sort of hazard. So a lot of the rivers that I do run at the moment, I know them quite well, but I always inspect certain rapids. There's a certain rapids we always get out and inspect just to be sure that it's safe. And then if it's not safe, you portage around it.
Okay, so Paul, which spot is your favorite place so far to kayak?
Well, I'm going to say Canada. I mean, I have a river beside me. It's my local river, and it's 12 months a year. It's dam controlled, and it's what I call a play river. So there's two types of kayaking I do. I do play boat and creek boating. So the play boat would be a smaller kayak. You go in and surf waves. You might do some tricks, spins, or the kids can do somersaults, loops. I can't do that because I'm a little bit too old for that, but some of the kids can do it. But I'm happy to go out and surf, maybe do a couple of spins. So that's a local river. And then creek boating, which would be, going a bit more technical. You have a longer, bigger boat, and you might do some waterfalls. My waterfalls are only a small waterfall, so I'm not going to do anything too big. I leave that to the young people. My favorite, there's one river I'm hoping to go to on Sunday. I've been there quite recently, and it's called the Mistaya River, and it's right here in the Canadian Rockies. And the color, it's just a stunning river from the point of view of the scenery. It's surrounded by incredible mountain peaks, nature, and It's class 3, continuous whitewater for about 9 kilometers.
So, Paul, if I want to start whitewater kayaking, what advice would you give to me and everyone else who wants to do this sport?
If there is a club in your area that does whitewater, I would suggest get in touch with them. Um, they will give you the basic instructions up to expert instructions. So they'll start you off in different courses. I think equipment is very important. Uh, Not so much the kayak at the moment, but I do think, the PFD, your life jacket, and a helmet, those two particularly, I would say, is the most important, in my opinion, mainly because I've had a few incidents, where I've had bad equipment, and that's not good. Um, and then take it from there. So, depending on where you are, if there's a club nearby, go to a club, get some advice, get some into some classes, and learn how to kayak from there. But it's like everything else. Once you get into it, once you buy your own equipment, the rivers are free. So that initial layout and then everything else is pretty much free to do it. But
Really good
yeah,
point. That's a very, very
yeah,
good point. Yeah.
yeah, and I encourage everyone to try it.
Actually, now that you mentioned the clubs and, getting advice and help from people from the club, did you also have to do some sort of classes or courses before you're allowed to do different rapids?
No, no. I mean, everybody's an adult and they should be able to decide if they're going to do something or not. And you should know your ability to do something. I know some people push themselves a bit further to do certain things, and there has been consequences of people haven't survived or got seriously injured. I know some people that's happened to, and some people have left the sport because of that. But then that can happen in anything, like if you're into climbing or if you're into ice hockey or even soccer, people get injured and that's the end of their career. So that's why I think joining a club is important.
Yeah, completely agree with you there as well. And have you yourself been in a dangerous situation going down a river? And if you have, what was going through your mind?
I've had one that was, yeah, I was in another country and I'd done a river which shouldn't have been a problem for me. It really shouldn't have been. But the equipment I had, because it was through a company, through an organized trip, the company I with, the equipment to me wasn't right. So the kayak they gave me was too big for me, way too big. I could roll it. I tried to roll at the beginning. I always get into a river, I do a roll, make sure I'm feeling right. So I got into this river, roll the kayak, fine. Further down the river, I hit a hole. So a hole can be very retentive. So it's where the water washes back, and it can keep you in there. So you're getting washed in, and you can surf it. You can stay upright by surfing and try and edge your way out. But depending on the hole, it can flip you. It can keep flipping you. So you're rolling up and you're rolling back down. This one was nothing really special, but it flipped me straight away, and I couldn't roll. So I ended up swimming. The PFD, the life jacket I had, was really not a good one. Again, it wasn't my own. So I felt myself getting pulled down quite a lot. So I was going under the water quite a bit, and the water was quite fast. So from my mind, I thought this was it. I genuinely thought that I wasn't getting out of this one. I'm making this out to be really dangerous, but honestly, it's great sport. I'm making this sound bad, and I don't mean to. This is extreme, so this doesn't happen much. This really doesn't happen. This is once. This one, when I had a bad PFD was because I had bad equipment, and that's the first time that's happened to me in my kayaking career. So in 10 odd years, that's the only time. So that's why I say get yourself good equipment. Um, a rock, yeah, I've hit a rock probably a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. That's it over 10 years. And I've paddled a lot. So it's not something that happens all the time. More often than not, you get on a river, you paddle down, you have great fun, you get off and you go have a beer.
Yeah. While you were telling me the story, my heart was just beating really fast. Because I actually do want to try it, but that's what I'm worried about because the the things that I see about whitewater river kayaking is usually a lot of the negative side or the dangerous side because you see YouTube videos, people doing crazy stunts, right? Going down waterfalls. You don't really see people doing the kind of boring stuff, just going down a simple river. And a lot of the times you get to see, all the accidents. So it does worry me quite a bit, but I suppose from an outsider perspective, it does look scary.
And it can be. I mean, like, but it's like anything else. You get on a mountain bike. I do some mountain biking here, and a lot of people. There's more accidents from people biking than there is from kayaking. People fall off their bikes all the time, but people still get back, as the saying goes, get back on your bike and try again. So, in the white water, yeah, it's an extreme sport. Things can happen, but if you're prepared and you have the right equipment, you'll enjoy it. You'll have a lot of fun. And for me, at my age, I just don't push myself further than I know my abilities are. So I'm well aware of my abilities.
Paul, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I mean, it's such a unfamiliar area of kayaking for me, and then you just showed me a whole different light.
It's great. Yeah, I hope you someday get to try it.